big dumb idiot. Looks like you got yourself a saucy hand.
Yeah, I do.
Try yourself a Picasso boneless wing. Maybe next. Well,
Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Yeah. Bills Mafia. Don Brown. Yeah. It's the Mafia, you know I'm rocking with the Bills. It's the Mafia, you know I'm rocking with the Bills. It's the Mafia, I'm with the Buffalo Bills. It's the Mafia, you know I'm rocking with the Bills. Hey, who you reppin', what's your team? Who you reppin', what's your team? You know I'm reppin' for my team. I got that Allen on my team. Micah Hyde, Jordan Boyer, can you catch it? Can you? Trade day is like a mask, you not catching anything.
Folks, welcome back to a pregame edition of the Crowd Assist podcast, the Trubisky edition, we're going to call it for today, MereKat. I'm your host, Evan Masseri, here with one of our co-hosts, MereKat, on this great Saturday football afternoon matinee. This show is sponsored by Outlet Liquor. What's your outlet? MereKat, are you looking forward to this game, or are you just kind of like going through the motions? But hey, we got a Trubisky Bowl here to look forward to.
You know, the Trubisky storylines built it up a bit for me. I'm always excited about preseason. Don't get me wrong. Football deprived for so long, so many months, especially with the hype behind the Bills. Get me to preseason. I'm so happy we're here. But, you know, it's always still not the same. But today there's that added excitement with the Trubisky revenge game factor. I mean, I'm definitely excited for it. As, you know, menial as it is, people were worried about him getting booed. You had players voicing their opinions, both Bears and Bills, saying, hey, you better not boo Trubisky. Bills posted a video about an hour ago, him just signing his Bears jerseys and all that, people cheering him on and stuff. So it was great to see that, but I still hope he sticks it to them.
Yeah, I think it was Sal Capaccio and WGR who said that there was a plethora of Trubisky jerseys in the stands last week. And so we're going to see that again this week. And I think I saw Brother Bill's video with the Trubisky nameplate swap this morning too. It's a good video over there. That was pretty funny. But I think what I really want to see more than anything is him have a little bit extra mojo. I want to see what Trubisky's able to do. Is Brian Daboll petty enough to actually call a few plays? That's what we'll find out here in the next 30 minutes. It's going to be an interesting, or is he just going to run the ball? That's going to be a really interesting storyline to me. And I think with Matt Nagy, so I think if you had a different coach, MereKat, maybe it takes the sting away. Like, it's a new regime, new coach, new everything. Can you really care at that point? I don't know how much. Same type of regime. Does that matter? So if you're sitting there in your Mitchell biscuits and you're like, this is preseason, I want to assert myself as maybe one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. I want to show Chicago what they missed, and maybe other teams too. Is this the game you might see some fire from him personally, or do you think it's going to be just another game for Mitchell Trubisky himself?
No, I think, he obviously knows it's preseason. He's a veteran at this point, and that it doesn't matter much. But to him, it does matter coming back in front of these fans. And you brought up the same regime being there who, overdrafted him, put him in a position where he never really had the best chance to succeed. Not saying, he would have been a superstar somewhere else, but he's definitely got a vendetta against Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, and I can't believe they kept him. It seems like he has a good relationship with most of the team still. The fans today looked great with him. So he's going to go out there and he's going to be like, hey, let's show them, what they're missing a bit, even though they do have Justin Fields and my guy QB1 back behind me. So it's not like, they don't have a quarterback right now, and he's like, hey, look what you're missing. They have their shiny new toy, but still, it's a nice little storyline I want to see him follow through on.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting here is, back to your point, I mean, we're going to see Andy Dalton for, I think, a quarter and a half is what they said, and then the rest Justin Fields, which I was very happy about. So I'll give Chicago a little pat on the back because they took Fields away from other teams they did not want him to go to. So, I'm not going to hate too hard today. I'm not going to be too upset when I see Justin Fields' skill set against some of our twos, by that time, maybe even threes on the field. And, they didn't play great against some much worse quarterbacks last week. So I thought the twos had a great game last week. MereKat, I thought the threes, as expected, were very raw, very rough. I was expecting just a little bit more out of the threes last week. But maybe this is the day that they'll step it up, because we always talk about on the show how much we love the depth of this roster. We're talking about linebacker. You could go 7 or 8 different ways there at the final linebacker spot. You can go a few different ways at receiver. I mean, there's some threes that we're talking about here that we're claiming, might get picked up by other teams. So I'm hoping that they have a better game today. Even McDermott said, we didn't finish the game particularly well at all. They played pretty poorly down the stretch. So I want to see that depth show itself today. And they're going to have to go against a talented guy in Justin Fields for at least 2 quarters. So it's going to put a lot of pressure on the DBs of the world here. Elijah Griffins, the McLeods, the guys that we're hoping to see might sneak into the roster. So, there's a lot to really watch. And I think it's going to be a talented test for this team, because Bears are trying to figure it out. They've got a rookie quarterback, hopefully taking the job away from your QB1. So is Justin Fields a top story? He's coming in with a little bit of a groin. So what's your opinion on that?
He's got that little bit of an injury. I'm not worried about it. I mean, he did look great. He's been making sick passes all training camp. He's a guy who I was enamored with. I thought was second best quarterback in this draft behind Trevor Lawrence, obviously. So, yeah, you're right. The DBs are up to a big task, because we talked about it last show, but you brought it up. Rashad Wildgoose looked lost. He didn't look raw. He looked like he didn't know how to play professional football. And, some of these other guys like Nick McLeod, Elijah Griffin, you brought up as well. These are guys who have been making plays in camp. There's probably a corner spot that can be had on this team right now from one of these young guys if they stand out. So today is the day. If they're running against, Justin Fields and some of these young Bears receivers and stuff, it's going to be a decent, proving point for them to get something done, because we're not sure how week 3 of the preseason is going to be playing out as of now with playtime for these guys and stuff. I assume they'll see a decent amount, but we have cuts coming up and things like that. So this is the time from the ball out. And you brought up, just DBs in general. The biggest thing I'm looking for today out of that secondary is, the Josh Thomas and DeMar Hamlin dynamic again, whether it's them, competing against each other or on the field together, which we might see with Jaquan Johnson out, potentially out. I don't know if he's been ruled out. I know he missed the last few practices. He's a guy who probably going to make this roster, so he doesn't need to be pushed today. And they both looked great last week, especially Thomas. Like I brought up, everywhere on the field, involved in every play as the game went on. He started out a bit slow, but you saw him pick it up. He's a guy who I think, might be able to push for one of these depth safety roles on this team. And then Hamlin, we drafted him for a reason. He looked good. Another guy, a depth safety. Is Jaquan Johnson possibly on the hot seat? Is Saran Neal's role in the secondary possibly on the hot seat? Who knows? But these guys have a lot to prove today.
Yeah, they do. And I think there's more roster locks on this team than ever before, than I've ever covered or noticed. I think there's some roster locks here. And is Jaquan Johnson one? The only thing that I could say about Jaquan Johnson, he is close. Injuries are never loved by this specific regime. So it's going to be interesting to make sure that he's okay and he's on the roster, because if not, games can be played real quickly, especially if both of the guys you mentioned have great games. At some point, you got to start thinking about, we need availability. So hopefully it's nothing major for Jaquan Johnson. I wouldn't see him playing. I don't see Jordan Poyer or Micah Hyde playing. So you're really going to you got to get the Hamlin and Josh Thomas show. I mean, that's their start for the majority of the game, really, with only Tarek Thompson. I actually like a little bit behind them. Yeah. So really 3 safety switch going on today, and they're going to all get a good amount of the game. So that should be a position that really highlights maybe by the end of it, if we have a 4th safety. And maybe if we have a 3rd and 4th safety. So there's a lot to look out for that DB unit, the DB squad especially. And Wildgoose just got to play a little bit better. He's a player that the Bills invested a 6th-round pick in. One that, I liked the pick, but personally, I was all over Jarrett Patterson. We saw it last night. Run Jarrett Patterson, the talk of the preseason, how much Chase Young loves and helps. So, for me, I'm going to always hold Wildgoose to a little bit more standard and the Jack Andersons of the world. Because I need to see a little bit from them when the Bills could have potentially have had a running back 3, running back 4 right in front of their nose. So we'll see how that turns out here with how some of these depth players look, but I do need to see a little bit more out of these guys because I do think there's still 4 or 5 roster spots to be had. And one position that I'm going to highlight here, MereKat, is linebacker. Andre Smith probably played his way onto the roster. He's probably closer to a roster lock than a lot of us had originally thought with all the other names floating around. So watch out for Andre Smith. Probably going to get a ton of playing time. Can Terrell Dodson do enough today? Obviously Tyler Matakevich is probably on the roster. Another stone cold roster lock here. Yep, stone cold roster lock. Joe Giles Harris, a guy who's had a great camp, a guy that they think they could probably put onto the practice squad, but another name that may need a roster spot. And then that's not even to mention Terrell Adams, who's a guy that was very trendy with all of his talks and how well he actually started to play last season. Got a lot of starts last year, so a lot to like about him as well. Matt says, love preseason. This is where people find roster spots on a loaded team. It's true. So that's to the point of like, I want to see stuff out of this third unit. I mean, practice squads are made and people find a team all the time. Like, look at Patterson, for example. If for some reason Washington decided they like Peyton Barber more than him, Patterson's going to have a spot in the NFL, and that's directly to preseason. People are like, well, it's preseason. I'm like, well, yeah, we're not talking about Josh Allen here. We're talking about players, wild goose. We're talking about players that need to do something today to make your practice squad or another team. So this is really important to 50% of the roster. It's more a percentage of the roster than you would want to believe in. And the twos, and then you go to the twos, and these are guys that are like trying to prove they can start. So it's important to them too. So if something happens, you have a spot starter here. MereKat, tell me someone you're looking forward to seeing today who may have a way to play onto the roster or practice squad or however you want to take it.
So you brought up, I was looking at the linebackers too, because I think, between the 3 of Joe Giles Harris, Andre Smith, Tyrell Adams, these guys are going to be battling it out today for, one of these linebacker spots. But I'm going to be really watching 2 guys today. One, Justin Zimmer. Been a camp darling, darling since he's been on the team. People have loved him since, the Newton fumble, the hustle plays. He's involved in the Tehran pick 6, hustling, all that stuff. People love Justin Zimmer. And, he probably should make this roster, but Harrison Phillips, looks great too. There's only so many defensive tackles you can keep, especially with how many defensive linemen in general we have. So I still think, Zimmer's a fringe guy. I don't see him as a lock right now as much as I'd like to say he is. So big preseason play. I think you have to say he makes this roster. He basically, they're looking for a reason not to keep him on the roster, I think, more than to keep him on the roster. And then definitely going to be looking at Matt Breida, a guy we brought in. Wake loves him. I'm not as high on him. We've talked about that. But he didn't look great last week. Neither did Antonio Williams. So I'm going to be watching these running backs because I don't know how much Devin Singletary we're going to see today. Are they going to run Zach Moss today?
I think so. Yeah, I think you'll see Zach Moss. I think Singletary's RB1. I mean, I really do think he's done enough. So we'll see what they do with him, but we'll see a lot of Zach Moss today. I think McDermott has already said as much. Interesting note on the Bears, though, for this game, guys. No Cole Kmet. So a guy that they really like out of there, a guy that they probably wanted to see a little bit more of over, I don't know if Jimmy Graham's going to play or not, but no Allen Robinson and no Darnell Mooney. So mainly the weapons out of Chicago are going to be out today. It's no surprise to someone like Buffalo, but not playing, Diggs, Beasley, etc. But someone out of Chicago, those are main weapons here to kind of judge Justin Fields or to, I guess, build some rapport with Andy Dalton. So it's going to be a brutal game offensively. I don't know if that means we see Montgomery. I mean, I wouldn't play him if I was the Bears, but power to them if we see some David Montgomery today. But I don't. There's no receiving weapons available today. So I want to see, the Marquise Goodwins of the world versus some of these Bills DB. So there's a lot to be had here for the defense. And I like Justin Zimmer point to I think a lot of people have him as a stone cold lock, and I'm not ready to put him as a stone cold lock just with how well, Harrison Phillips has played at times lately. Are they going to be quick to cut Vernon Butler? I don't think it is as much as other people think. I don't think it's a quick cut. I don't think it's like he's cut. I think they like him. They restructured his contract. There's a lot to like about Vernon Butler, especially not in a workhorse role. I think he can bring some stuff to this football team. So I think the DT position is actually surprisingly interesting because at the end of this, maybe it is pretty straightforward. maybe it's not, and they go with 3, or they go with some people that we didn't. Maybe Brandon Bryant makes the team, who played pretty well in a depth role last week. One of the better playing backup players, in my opinion, in an underperforming defensive unit at the end of the second half last week. Didn't play particularly well, but Brandon Bryant did. So does that mean anything? I don't know. It's tough to think he has a spot, but will it mean something to the team? He's definitely they love him. He's definitely a practice squad player. So at what point do they make that determination over practice squad to regular roster? We'll find that out shortly, but I think I liked your point on running back. Matt Breida is a guy we need to see a little bit more out of. Antonio Williams, I don't know is he playing? Do you know? Have we heard of he got hurt?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
because
there's some running
he's
back
a guy
injuries.
Who needs to be playing if to save his practice squad. All right,
Yep.
Bills not in uniform against the Bills.
Here we go.
Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Isaiah Hodgins. Then running backs, Christian Wade, Antonio Williams, both out.
Yikes.
Then Mike Love, Trayvon Hester, who I think is in the next round of cuts. Jaquan Johnson, Tommy Sweeney, Forrest Lamp. Not good for Forrest Lamp or Tommy Sweeney.
No, I was a big fan of both of theirs. I think Tommy Sweeney's going to be a guy they put on the practice squad, guys. I don't think that he's anywhere else on the roster. I'm sorry. They like Reggie Gilliam too much. Yeah. I just don't have the roster spot for Gilliam and for Tommy Sweeney. He's a practice squad player, especially with what he's gone through. I think they're pretty confident that he'll be able to be one of their main practice squad players. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Forrest Lamp's an interesting one because I thought he would be pushing for a starting role and he can't get on the field. We were just talking about with Jaquan Johnson. Availability is huge to this regime. That might do Forrest Lamp in when I was pretty pro Forrest Lamp. And I like that what he was able to turn around in his career. Did you have any defensive or was that just the offensive players? Was there any...
for defensive, it was Mike Love, Trayvon Hester, and then Jaquan Johnson. So not many sitting out defensively, at least. Not in uniform. These are so there might be guys who are dressed and might have something lingering. They don't see the field, but
so those are the guys with injuries. Okay,
yeah.
That's an interesting.
Another guy, which is with Love there too, who looked good at points last game and has kind of stuck around for a bit. This coaching staff is interested in so. Some guys who are fringe guys who have a chance to make this roster that me and you both like Sweeney and Lamp. Are going to be affected today, missing this game for sure. With how close some of these battles are, these last few roster spots up for grabs, it's tough. It's tough for them. Sucks.
Yeah. And I think that they're going to need to touch into that tight end spot. It's not a particularly deep group, and if they keep a guy like Gilliam, who's an H back, I guess, I just don't see the roster spot for Sweeney. They're going to need to put it somewhere else with all these deep defensive ends. Maybe they keep an extra offensive lineman. Maybe they do something goofy at receiver. I mean, I just don't see the spot for Tommy Sweeney, especially as you're trying to keep some of these good, talented young depth players, and they probably think they can get him on the practice squad. So, but that proves my point to Breida and Moss today. You're going to see a lot of them. There's no one else. There's no one else going to be there. Lock time on Jones. I don't know how much he's going to carry the ball if he's even playing. So you're going to get really a Moss game, and he needs it. So Zach Moss is the highlight of the game today, guys. Watch Zach Moss. I need to see what he can do. I need to see him against 2s and 3s. I need to see him perform at a high level. And same with Matt Breida. So it's going to be interesting. And I think without your 2 backup running backs in this game, I think you're going to see Singletary today, and I think you're going to see him a little bit more than maybe they'd like. But someone's got to run the ball, and maybe he can get in some extra work, and you can keep him safe. But that leads us to kind of the closing portions of the show as kickoff's about 10 minutes away. Is there anyone that you're thinking is in trouble? Is there anyone that absolutely needs a game today to even have a shot at this thing?
There's some guys. There's one who sticks out to me is Brandon Powell. Even just because they tried him out, the return role. They give it on the go at receiver as well, but I don't think he's doing nearly enough in either of those categories because they have been giving him lots of opportunities to try to get that return role, both in camp and then last week, giving him a return, and he just hasn't done much. So he's a guy who, I think might be gone because now we're looking at, we're talking about 6 receiver battle. Are we going to keep 7? But there are receiver battle now going on for these practice squad camps with guys like Lance Lenore and stuff who are shining at camp. And, a game from them, a guy like Brandon Powell might be gone. And then, you brought up Brandon Bryant had a good game, but guys like him and Trayvon Hester was missing today. I don't think they can even do enough to earn consideration for the roster. Other than that, no one crazy. Like there's some camp, like a guy like a Tyler Gauthier, who I think is just a pure camp body with how well Morse has been, and Ryan Bates behind him. So things like guys like that, maybe they can earn their practice squad spots today, but I think they're facing the chopping block.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And for me, I need to see some stuff out of this running back room, because I am not convinced don't go out and get a third running back. I am not convinced of it. As cuts start to trickle down here on the 24th, 5 more cuts. We'll have a last segment on who we think might get snipped. But I mean, you're talking about running backs that are starting to come into the market, and they're going to start to come in the market even more frequently in about 10 days. It's a position you can pick up pretty easily. You can almost play the next day, really. So I'm not convinced that there's not a move to be made at the running back position. So I need to see some stuff out of Matt Breida. I need to see this elusiveness. I need to see this 5+ yards per carry that everyone talks about. Haven't seen it yet. I need to see it today. I'm still not feeling optimistic out of a horrible year in Miami, not being able to stay healthy, not being able to beat guys like Savion, Ahmed, and others who wasn't a great room there. So I want to see what Matt Breida is able to do, and he needs to start doing it like now. So that's my guy to note. You're going against guys like Patrick Laird over there in Miami, and he still just couldn't really break through those injuries. So it's not a great sign at the running back position specifically. So I want to see what he's able to do today. And I need to see Zach Moss healthy, running the ball. But that O-line, that was a brutal O-line last week there, MereKat. Are we okay at the starting unit? Okay, probably. Are we okay with needing to make sure Dawkins is healthy and the depth of this and Bobby Hart's of the world? We got some work to do with the rookie offensive lineman. Bates is a trusted guy, but outside of that, Spencer Brown graded out okay. Based on what I was reading and seeing, but Tommy Doyle had a worse game than Bobby Hart by all accounts. Most people don't notice that because of how bad Hart was, but the tackle play was not good last week without Dion Dawkins. So are you worried about the O-line as we go into the kickoff shortly?
Nah, I'm worried about Dion Dawkins today. I'm not overblowing it and making a mountain out of a molehill, but he looks skinny in that picture the team posted of him getting on the plane yesterday and stuff. I mean, he's lost weight. He's just getting back into practice this week after some serious complications. Throwing him right into game action. I mean, I know you want him ready for the season. This is kind of how you have to do it if you want him to be. But is he going to be ready? I'm just concerned today about him. Overall, though, with the offensive line, I wish we just got this whole starting unit together to play, some meaningful snaps this preseason and, see them go at full strength. But with Dawkins, how he is and such, I don't think we're going to see that. Okay. And I'm a bit worried, we talk about Forrest Lamp and stuff. These are guys who very well facing the chopping block. And Bobby Hart, I understand him still being on the roster. It's you're going to cut him and then just sign someone else who's just as bad or something just to be a camp body for another week or two. Keep him, I guess, till we need to get rid of him. But if he's actually on this roster because Tommy Doyle's that bad, I'm going to be a little upset.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenging situation. And that's maybe why they hold Forrest Lamp. Yeah. Normally, I wouldn't see good things for Forrest Lamp, but just guard play in general, I'm looking forward to at least seeing him late in the preseason, at least maybe into week 1. I don't think he's a for sure cut yet. So we'll have to see what happens at the offensive line position. It's really interesting. It's an interesting unit. Is it a unit they make look at the waiver wire like we just talked about with the running back? It's very possible that maybe there's only 6 or 7 guys they actually like, and they might go out and find an 8th and 9th guy on the wire. So I think the majority of them are playing. Darrell Williams is said to have a really great camp. One of the best players in camp. So that's good. That's a good note. Hopefully Dawkins gets back to that. Morris, is a guy that I think might be a really most improved player of the year or someone that's really important to this offense. So there's some things to like about the starting unit, especially, but I'm not feeling great behind them, with Ryan Bates, Ike Butker, 2 guys I do like, but outside of that, I think there's some challenges there. So hopefully Spencer Brown is able to solidify that. Lastly here, MereKat, give me a couple of guys that will be cut most likely here in the next couple of days. Some names that Bills fans can be watching and be like, that might be one of MereKat's cuts.
So I jumped the gun a bit, but I'm going to go.
It's okay.
I think Brandon Powell is gone. The receiving room, you just got to clear bodies up. I think the next man after him would be Lance Lenore, who's impressed this camp. They might want to keep him for practice squad, but I think Brandon Powell's gone. I think, one of these corners, whether it's Wild Goose, who we actually drafted, Griffin or McLeod, is going to be gone because you need to start clearing up that cornerback room a bit. And then I think the same thing with linebacker. I think it could be Markel Lee. I know you said he looked good last week. You liked him a bit, but I think he might be the odd man out this week. And I'm like a guy like Tyler Gauthier. And then one of the tight ends. Look for Nate Becker or Markel Lee. Both can do some things nice. I know they have some fans here and there. Shout out to Judge Mathis with his Nate Becker love. But I think one of those two is gone as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm on the same lines. I think they're going to start to make some moves defensively. I mean, Trevon Hester is probably good as gone. There's just no need for him, especially with, like I mentioned, Brandon Bryant probably looking at the practice squad most likely. They might hold on to the linebackers because they probably want to see that play out over next week. But I do think that they're going to they need the safeties because they just, they don't have a ton on the roster. But I do think you'll see one of those moves at the cornerback position. So it's tough for me to know where they rank Nick McLeod up against the others. But it will be a cornerback. And Nate Becker was on my list for sure. He's a guy that I think is gone out of this scenario. And, they're going to have to make moves at the receiver room sooner or later. And it's going to be in the form of Brandon Powell, probably. But he was like closer to the roster than I ever imagined. Like they really tried to make him a thing.
Yeah, that's what I was saying with the returning. I can't believe how hard they pushed him to be like the return guy without, I don't know. I didn't get it. Don't take away reps from Stevenson and McKenzie.
Yeah, no, that was super bizarre, but they still do have a plenty. Like, we all talk about Tanner Gentry and, they can't like them all. So, one of those guys will be in this cut unit. So, and do I still have a Bug Howard on the roster? I have a Bug Howard still on the roster.
Another interesting name is the Jack Anderson. I know you brought him up. I know he has a draft pick invested in him, but is he even with what he's shown? Is he worth practice squad with some of the other pieces we have? I don't think so. So cutting a draft pick in the Brandon Bean area before the season starts isn't great, but hey, I trust him. It's whatever.
The roster's deep. I didn't like the pick to begin with.
I hated it. It was the only pick I hated out of the draft.
And, he's caught 7th round picks. I mean, he drafted his buddy's son in Austin Prohl. So, he'll take shots in the 7th round. He's caught a couple of guys there before. Like, that's a UDFA range for him. He's like, okay, maybe Anderson won't sign with us, so I got to draft him here. I'll always hate it because I think you could have added immense competition to the running back room in Jarrett Patterson. I thought he was right there under his nose for a lot of teams, but specifically the Bills, who knew what they had in him, could have invested a 7th round pick instead of Jack Anderson and had a guy in here who could run the ball all game today and really put some pressure on the roster. So I'll always be a little bit disappointed they went with Jack Anderson in that range because, like you said, he was not a guy. I mean, I barely looked at him. I mean, he was ranked pretty low in a lot of places, and I never got around to watching him. It just, I don't know. It had to have been like, hey, we want him, but we don't think he'll sign here. So it wasn't a great pick, but I think he could be in the initial chopping blocks come here in a couple of days. But it's time for kickoff, MereKat. We got to get out of here. We got to shout out our crowd sponsor, Outlet Liquor and Picasso's Pizza. Get out there and try your Picassos. Get those boneless wings and swig it down with your favorite drink from Outlet Liquor. What's your outlet? But give me a score prediction today real quickly, MereKat. What do you got?
I am going with Mitchie Biscuits, revenge game, big dub. I am going 24-17 Buffalo. Okay.
I like offense in this game as well. I think it'll come in this performance with what we're seeing. I had jotted down here 27-17. I think the Bills will score a lot of points here. I think that they'll have some things schemed up. And Mitchell Trubisky revenge game. I'm looking forward to it. I think the Bills do enough defensively that we're talking a little bit about some more plays here in the upcoming week of the Crowd Assist podcast. But got to get out of here. I'm Kevin. That's MereKat. Good night now.